And welcome everyone to tonight's Zoom at 8 call. My name is Julianne Peterson. I will be your host today. I'm with Old Capital Lending, and we specialize really in multifamily. We've closed $1 billion for the last 2 years, 5,700 loans. So if you are looking for a debt partner, please let me know. I'd like to have the opportunity to look over your deal and see if we can put something together for you. I am thrilled to have our speakers tonight, but before we introduce them, I want to check in with you and see if anybody has any questions about anything to do with multifamily, whether it's how do I find a partner, what are the reserves going on, I'm working on a deal, I had some questions. Anybody have gotta have an answer today? Anybody?
Gotta have an answer today, not necessarily, but are reserves down to 9 months now instead of 12?
That is 9 months to hold, but for Fannie is going to be 12 months for above 6 million, and it's still at 18 for below 6. If you're talking about Freddie, it's 12 months, but 9 months is how long Fannie holds it, a minimum of 9 months.
Got it.
So
They
there's the numbers, you know, you got 12, you got 9, you got 6, you got 18. So it kind of gets confusing. Yeah.
So underwrite for Fannie at 18 months principal and interest, but Freddie holds it for 9 months.
Freddie holds it Freddie holds it a minimum of 90 days past when the governors, the state representatives, the city pulls the release on the COVID, or 12 months. So Fannie actually has a better release time on the surface than what Freddie does. Freddie will say 90 days of when those are released, but who knows when the governments are going to release that. So if you take out that, you really look at 12 months. Okay. It could be 12 months minimum, and it could be 12 months maximum. So we just don't know. Okay. Anybody else have something burning that they needed to chat about? I mean, this is the opportunity. If you haven't jumped on any of the webinars or podcasts or Zoom calls where, you know, people are chatting, this is a great place. We love to see everybody showing up on our Tuesday calls. Anybody? Tim, what are you working on? Anything? I haven't heard from you recently.
Yeah.
Any deals? What do you got?
I got a 34 unit working on right now, and there's a 48 unit I have to start underwriting. So
yeah.
All in Maryland.
You know, I will say that I think there's great opportunities for 20 to 100 units and even 20 to 80 units right now for all of us. So keep that in mind. I think a lot of the stronger syndicators are not wanting to get involved. And I think for the new investors, yeah, we'd love to scale up to 100, 150, 200, but let's get real. We can probably make some inroads for 50 to 100 units. So really keep that in mind. Don't say I'm not going there. Really open your mind to that idea. So I want to hear from somebody oh, I'm sorry, Steve, what did you say?
If anyone has any contacts out in Augusta in terms of property managers or contractors for multifamily, I may be going out there this week or next week. So
I do have property managers there. I would I'll get you offline and give you a couple that I know of that are great.
Beautiful, thank you.
Sure. Anybody else?
See, I'm gonna put my email in the chat too. I have a friend that does some deals out in Augusta as well. I can surely provide it.
Excellent. All right. Anybody want to share what actions they've taken this last week to taking the steps to propel themselves towards the next step of owning multifamily? Anybody take one step? I mean, today, when we hear from Dylan and Katerina, this is going to be one more step towards getting into multifamily. So anybody want to share with us what they've done this past week?
When you say
Wow, you guys.
when you
Don't
say
hold
moving
back.
forward, when you say, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Daryl.
Yes,
Are you can hear me?
yes.
Oh, I was just wondering, like, do you mean like what action I'm taking to try to get to acquire properties when you say that, when you ask?
Yeah, right? And
Oh.
you're on your way towards, right?
So Daryl, I think you're breaking up, at least you were on my end. But I think what you said is what actions that you took to getting to multifamily, whether it was you called a broker or you put in an LOI. What are the steps? What one thing did you do this last week that is propelling you towards getting closer to a deal? Do you want to share?
Okay, so yes. So I have been sending out direct mail through to certain markets that I'm interested in, to directly to the owners of properties. That's what I've been doing this week.
Great. That is not easy. It's tedious work. You know, have you thought about talking to an AI or a virtual assistant to see about helping you send out some of that, taking that off your plate, but, you know, certainly lightening your load, because that is a lot of work.
I haven't thought about it. I know that that exists, but no, I'm just pumping it out, you know.
Okay.
Especially being at home during COVID-19, it's not like you know, like I'm really tied up. So I use my time wisely.
Nice. Yeah. We did something on with Michael Blanc's group called The Shift, and we broke down our $10 tasks, our $100 tasks, and our $1,000 tasks. And a lot of people came to realize that we were doing a lot of $10 tasks to leverage our business when we should have been spending more time doing the $1,000 tasks and getting somebody else or you know, maybe one of your kids to lick the envelopes than having you do it. So if you haven't looked at your tasks that you do on a daily basis, I found it to be extremely helpful and to see where maybe somebody else could help. Is there anybody else before we turn over tonight's speaking to Katerina and Dylan who wants to share something that you've done this past week to accelerate your business in multifamily?
Spent yesterday going through lots of lease contracts, and that was a good way to learn.
What was your interest in learning? Just about the length of them? Tell us about that.
It's just a live deal. So just
Okay.
to figure out, you know, exactly to project cash flow really and understand the state of the business, just do a deep dive on it. So I thought that was a really valuable exercise.
Excellent.
Did-
That's great. Good
Quick
idea.
tidbit on that. I can't help but jump in. But when you're doing the due diligence, did you also look at, not to put you on the spot, but did you also look at the applications?
No, I don't have access to the applications. What would you look for there?
So I asked this because I made this mistake once, and it's something I'll never do again. It's something I try to put into during due diligence, because a lot of people look at the leases. But a golden tip here is look at the applications, because that's almost more valuable than leases, because you're going to be able to determine what their credit score was when they were applying, where they're working, right? You're going to learn so much more on those applications that are going to tell you about who's living on your property. So that's something that I would, while you're still on DD, definitely push to go get that.
That's great information. In fact, we're involved in quite a few of refinances. And so we're asking for applications because a lot of the lenders want to know what's the demographics? What is the type of people that are living in this? Is there, especially like if it's near a military base, what's the concentration? And so if we're looking at a place that has a high intensity of hospitality, let's say, or gas and oil and gas, then we're going to take that into consideration, and the lending part will also be affected. So I actually really agree with you, Dylan, on that, and we are asking for that information. So get that up front. Really helpful. Yeah. Good point. Well, unless anybody else has one bit of information, I'm going to go ahead and get us off and running with our guests tonight. I've got Dylan Marma and I have Katerina Stepanova, and they are partners in they are in a company called, they're partners in Requity Tree. All right, and Dylan is a principal of Requity Group. Dylan has sponsored $50 million in real estate deals over the last 5 years. He has worn many hats in the business, including acquisitions, investor relations, asset management, and business development. With a passion for scaling businesses, creating returns for investors, and helping other sponsors happen, he co-founded in 2020 with Katerina Requity Tree. And then for Katerina, she was born and raised in Moscow, Russia, and she immigrated to the United States 13 years ago and now lives in New York City. No, not New York City. You live in the state of New York, right? Or you
I live in the Bronx.
Okay, in the Bronx. Okay. So today she is partnered with M2K Partners, who owns several mobile home park communities throughout the country. Katerina is a co-founder of Requity Tree, which is a software platform dedicated to helping commercial real estate investors manage their deals and investor relations for an affordable price, and with educational support as well through that entire investment process. This is the cool part, is that she also is a host of a virtual meetup for mobile home park investors called MHP Tribe. We have not had somebody speak to us about mobile home parks. So this is a real treat, Katerina. And we're excited to hear from both of you. We have not also had a company come and talk to us about investor software. So we're really excited about this. I spoke a little bit with Dylan last week and thought this would be a super opportunity to get our other investors, our new investors, understand what kind of software is out there for us. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you. We can visit for 40 minutes, 50 minutes. If there are questions, if you could put them into the chat box, we can go that way. If you need it answered right away, please go ahead and just stop us and we'll go ahead and ask the question. All right, so you guys take it away. Thanks so much for joining us. We are thrilled you're here.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Well, thank you, Julie, for the introduction and for having us here on the show. Appreciate everyone making the time this evening. Hopefully we're able to provide some good value and share in our experience. So the way this all started off was Katerina and I have known each other from industry events over the last few years. And Katerina actually started to build this tool, the platform, as something that she was using for her own business last fall. And over time, we jump on a call every here and there and kind of I'd bounce ideas off her. And then eventually we said, well, hey, this looks like something we could definitely partner on to grow and scale this, because I was spending $15,000 a year on software. And, as much as I value the software, clearly it kind of hurt to write that size check. So we wanted to make something that was much more affordable and accessible for everyone. And really what we've done is, this has been something that we've done largely out of just as somewhat of a passion project to be able to help other people in the space, right? We're still first and foremost real estate investors, like everyone on this call. But this platform is something that we're building and it's evolving to meet the needs of other people in the space, to meet our own needs. And it's been a great pleasure. So Katerina, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, well, as Dylan said, I started working on the portal actually, close to a year ago, and that came from a necessity because I obviously, as Julie mentioned, my partners and we own together at this point 3 parks, and my partners also manage some other parks that they own from before. So there was quite a bit of moving parts and reporting and all kinds of things going on monthly, quarterly basis. And it just out of necessity, really, did not feel like I needed something super advanced with waterfalls and complex structures to get my business running the right way. So I started just building something with the help of developers. Started building something for my own needs, and along the way, I found it very valuable and just wanted to emphasize the transparency of our deals. I wanted to make sure that all our partners had access to state of our affairs, to state of our deals, and were able to track performance, not when we decide how sometimes you invest. I don't know if you noticed, maybe had experienced exposure to when you invest sometimes with operators, they might just keep you updated maybe every maybe quarter if that's agreed on, but what if they delayed and you're wondering and COVID hit or something, and then you wonder even more what is happening, and then half a year passes and you just want to know that for example, if it's a turnaround project, whether you are still on track, if things are moving along or not. So from that perspective, I just wanted to build a transparent tool that is also very easy to use and as Dylan said, we just wanted to make sure to put it in the hands of every investor. So this is like a new standard and an absolute no-brainer that they can use it, and it's so accessible, so easy, and can perform all the absolute necessary needs. So that was our passion: transparency, keep your investors and partners in the loop, make them part of the process, and let all investors, even beginning investors, let them have this tool in their toolbox when they can start from scratch, start from their sample deal, and start building that investor base that they so need at their first deal when they actually go under contract.
And not pay $15,000 like Dylan said, right? I mean, that's a lot of money if you don't have an active deal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. Even when you do.
Yeah, true.
But yeah, no, so that's sort of the backstory and the why, and it's became much more than that. It's really put us on a mission where we're really not just providing a software, but we actually have this a little bit of a platform similar to this where everyone's focusing specifically on how to build their investor base, how to continue to warm up their investor base before the deal comes, how to market the deal when the deal hits, and then how to ongoing perform the asset management and be effective in your communications to your investors. So that's really the mission that we're on, is a lot of the front end marketing stuff, and then the ongoing, relationship building that takes place. And that's what we hope, to bring on this call today. It's not, we're not here to go through a big sales pitch or demo. Obviously, anyone that has interest in the portal, we have great promotional offers. So after we're done teaching today, even if you want to just jump on a call, you can always visit our site and schedule a demo, and we can walk through that all as you see fit. But today we want to be able to bring a lesson and something that I think we could, we all benefit from and mastermind around. Before we get started too, I definitely want to give a shout out to, Old Capital. I've had nothing but great experiences with them. I'm, going through a broker right now on a refinance. And I think having a broker on your team is extremely valuable, right? I think people sometimes think they can save money by going direct or whatever. It's oftentimes not the case, hardly ever. Brokers can negotiate the deals down for you. Brokers can vet and show you who the true honest lenders are. So I just want to put that out there, that having a broker on your team is extremely valuable, because the lesson I learned the hard way is that some lenders, if you go direct, they're all going to say they're the very best, and then you're not going to find out until halfway through a deal, till it's too late. So just keep that in mind, and have a trustworthy broker on your team, and also want to give a shout out to Michael Blanc's group. Being that that was the first ever multifamily event that I attended. It was 4 years back, and I flew out from back when I was living in sunny San Diego, and flew out to DC for his very first event, I believe. And it was awesome. I was completely green at the time, and I think the one thing I think I did right there was I just asked all the dumb questions I could. Over time, kind of started picking things up, and that's where it all begins, right? So I know everyone's at different stages, but just, as we go through this, really is no dumb questions, but I think that gets thrown around to where it's cliche, but I really almost encourage asking dumb questions. If you don't feel like you're asking dumb questions, you're probably not asking enough questions. Today we wanted to really, more than anything, teach on, we have something that we'll go ahead and share with everyone after this call. I clicked annotate by accident. Whoops. Okay. So we have something that we put together that's called the 5-step fundraising guide. Let me see if I can zoom out a little bit here. So we put together this PDF, just basically, it's a 15-page PDF that outlines what we break into a 5-step process on fundraising, right? So if we look at the 5 steps, your first step is your pre-deal, and your pre-deal is everything that takes place prior to the deal coming up. I think that's the most important step, because if you do that step and you execute well, your life is going to be a million times easier when the actual deal comes up, and the rest of the problems can take care of themselves, and you can kind of figure them out as you go. So being that Katarina and I really believe in the pre-deal marketing, because it's the one thing I'd say probably the biggest pain point a lot of people come to us with, we figured that's what we're really going to emphasize on today. But just to give you an overview, and you can of course go through this stuff on your own, and if we schedule a call, we can help with any of the other steps. But there's deal marketing. So when the actual deal comes up, how are you presenting your deal? And then how are you structuring the deal and working with your attorneys to get the legal documents going in the background? Due diligence, as you know well, is a very busy process, and you have so many moving parts. But when you start raising capital, it gets twice as complex, probably 3 times as complex, because it's all going on at once. So now you're managing the investors, you're managing your brokers, your attorneys, your lenders, blah, 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 right? So it gets really hectic. So you really want to have your deal marketing systems down and know what you're doing each day throughout those first 30 days. And then the same thing goes for the next 30 days, which is more of the actual fundraising. Because remember, if you're doing a syndication specifically, a lot of this stuff is going to apply if you're doing JVs as well, if you're bringing in capital partners. So we don't want to try to pigeonhole it to just people syndicating, but typically when you're syndicating, around day 30 or day 20 to 30 is when the legal docs are going to be ready. And that's when you can actually start to collect funds. Before that, you're really just getting soft commitments and gathering that with your pre-deal. So then we go through, how do you actually fundraise? How do you hold the webinar? How do you, what goes on after that webinar takes place? How, who do you call first, and then who do you call second and third? So we go over all that. And then lastly, there's the post-close, which is the takeover process. Katarina and I feel very strongly that the first 90 days is the most important time period of all, really, because this is when you really build trust and set momentum, and set expectations for investors of what the journey is going to be like, right? We're in this together. It's like anything else. They say first impressions, and the last impressions are what matter. But the first impression when you're taking over a deal that you're going to be in for 5 to 7 years is vital. So having a clear 90-day plan outlined even prior to you taking over, or maybe using that as part of your marketing pitch, and then showing there's nothing better to build trust than to promise something and then fulfill your promise. So if you can kind of promise them what you're going to do in those first 90 days and then go out there and do it, they're going to be off to a great start, and that's going to take care of a lot of the stuff ongoing. And then, like Katarina mentioned about asset management, the ongoing, yeah, that's a lot of our, I think that's one of the bigger unique things about where our tool emphasizes on these projects. A lot of softwares are focused on just raising the capital, but we really focus on making sure that they can see what the actual performance is versus what the budget is on both a month by month and a quarterly basis, and make that always available. So if you don't want to do that, then our tool is probably not for you. But for those that want to have that kind of transparency and share that with their investors, that's what we really promote heavily. So, yep. And I always like the quote at the bottom. Just remember that the easiest way to find a new investor, or to find an investor, is a repeat investor, right? So the way you're going to get a lot of your investors, as we've both experienced in our deals with JV partners and doing syndications, right? I've worked with 100 something investors at this point, and a lot of them, a lot of them are repeat. Majority are, right? So I'd say over half the deal in my next deal will be funded by people I've already worked with before, right? And that's just a result of doing a good job and having a communication. It doesn't mean your deal has to go perfect. I know it can be stressful when you're raising capital because you have a lot of people's money on the line, and you can feel pressure with that. You don't have to be so don't get caught up in thinking it's all going to go perfect, but be conservative on your underwriting up front, and know that they're in for a ride. Set proper expectations and then fulfill it, and communicate along the way. If things aren't going to plan, just let people know and explain why. I think that's the most important thing. It's not, they just can't feel left in the dark, or like you're not being taken care of. Katarina, you got anything to bounce off that?
No, I think that's well said. It's the same as Dylan. Repeat partners, we have them deal after deal, and there is nothing more valuable. And this means, guys, ladies, this means you do your work well once and stay the course, and you will have no need for looking for another investors in your life. So in my previous career, customer service in advertising, take care of your customers, they will take care of you forever. So that's, with that in mind, this is kind of the cornerstone in our business.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So step one, we're going to go into the pre-deal, and we're really probably only going to have time to cover pre-deal on today's call. So we'll go deep on this stuff. And if you have questions, don't hesitate to interrupt us and let us know what your questions are. But it all starts with reverse engineering your goals. So think about the deal size. And I agree with what Julie mentioned. Right now, 20 to 100 units, it's a great place to play in right now. Because a lot of people, frankly, the reason a lot of people won't go after it, they're going to say typically it's harder to manage the 20 to 80 units or 20 to 100 units. And it is. There's definitely an element of truth to that, but they trade at higher cap rates because of that. Frankly, the reason is too, if you're syndicating, a lot of people get kind of complacent because they're going to make probably half the money on a 50 unit deal as they will on a 100 unit deal, and probably 25% of what they'll make on a 200 unit deal because they're doing this profit sharing model. So that's part of it, right? So if you're getting started, or even if I think even if you're experienced, like I'll still look at a deal that's smaller and just to do volume, because if you can do more deals a year that are quality deals, then it's helpful. So, but first, set what kind of deals are you looking at, right? So say we want to go out there and we want to buy a deal that's $10 million. If you're buying a $10 million deal, you might need 30% down. If you're getting a loan at 80%, maybe it's 35, 40%, right? But just back into that, right? Back into how much leverage you're going to be using, and kind of get an idea as to what your total equity, it's the sources and uses thing, right? So you want to think about how much your total equity is going to be as far as the source of your capital is coming, right? And then if you need 3 million, right? I use an average investment size of 75,000 because we think that's that's along the lines of what you probably are going to experience at first. A lot of people are going to test you out at your minimum. So if you make your minimum 50, they're probably going to go in at 50. All right, I'm kind of shifting to make it 100, but I would never go less than 50. I really wouldn't. If anyone's considering it, I'd say that's a big no-no because it's going to be like kind of herding cats to manage 1 million investors on one deal, and a lot of are going to start there. So go bigger on the minimum rather than go smaller. I think 50 is a good one. And if you do 50 in the beginning, you might start at an average investment size of 75,000. I think one of the big myths, or I don't know what to call it, a mistake that people make early on is kind of relying on the one fantasy whale investor that's going to be bringing in, $1.5 million to their next deal. It does happen, but definitely don't get your hopes up because you don't want to rely on that and then get lazy and not talk to enough other people to there, right? So the goal here, if you do calculate a 75,000 average investment, that means you need 40 actual investors. I really think that maybe 10 to 20%. That's oftentimes what you're actually going to convert on. So what we really preach is going out and having 400 even to 800 people. I know it sounds crazy, but talk to a lot of people. Like go out there, because being oversubscribed is the best feeling in the world. Like going to bed 3 days after your webinar and being oversubscribed, you sleep way better at night than being undersubscribed, right? So just realize that and really kind of factor in that you might take that average investment and kind of multiply that about 10% of the people on your investor list. And it's more of a quantity versus quality versus a quantity thing when it comes to investors. So it's not always like an exact numbers game like this, but at the same time, try to build a wide base. I just can't stress that enough. So the question is, okay, so we know what we're targeting. How do we get everyone on here? So I'm gonna actually start with this because Katerina and I actually held a webinar earlier today that was focused around, we had a guy come in that was teaching LinkedIn marketing. And that's really the big pain point that people have is how do I get in front of these people, right? And you can really do it two ways. There's the face-to-face way, and then there's leveraging technology. It's really a matter of, preference. I know people that before technology was as readily available would go and pay for luncheons, and they'd hold luncheons in, California and Texas, and they would do this big presentation and they'd get opt-ins, and that's how they built their investor base, right? One of my first mentors did a lot of that. And we're spoiled now because we have social media and we have easier ways to go out there and access people. So we like to say, have a lot of your basic marketing materials in place. So, have your website in place. Won't go too deep into that. 2-page website doesn't need to be anything crazy, but have a basic website in place with a basic brand and name. Even if you don't think you're going to raise capital in the near future, if you have your own money, you should probably want to do this and take a lot of these action steps, because you never know, right? It's better safe than sorry. If a bigger deal comes up that you can't take down yourself, your goals will change, right? We all know how that works in business, right? So, have a basic website, have your sample deal ready. I'm sure everyone's seen that at this point as far as what a sample deal looks like. I think Michael Blanc was one of the first really people out there pushing the sample deal and how that works. So, you definitely want to have a nice, clear sample deal, and just make it stupid simple as far as how the returns work. Right. So if someone asks, what happens to my $100,000? It's not like, oh, well, there's the deal level IRR, and then we have this waterfall structure, and then we have these fees that are built in, and then that kind of backs into how much you're going to get. And, it just gets really complex. Like if someone asks, if I invest 100,000, what does that typically look like? I typically will say, well, we typically, depending on the deal that we're targeting, multifamily, it's oftentimes we're targeting anywhere between, an average of 7, maybe up to 10% cash on cash throughout the holding period of the deal. And then then at the end, we're going to sell it about 5 years later, maybe a 5 to 7 year hold. We'll sell it when market timing's right, and you'll get your money back. Plus you're going to get some upside. So typically if we hold your deal for about 7 years, it roughly works out to we target to roughly double your money in about, you know, that 5 to 7 year mark if we hit our target, right? So that's kind of like the goal, is like I kind of show them, like, you know, you might be getting 8 to 10% a year, 7 to 10% a year, whatever that is. You dictate that number, and then maybe double your money in 5 to 7 years. So just keep it simple, right? And then if they want to get into the weeds, if they want to ask about preferred returns and waterfalls and all that stuff, like, let them go there. Obviously, you're going to disclose that to them when the deal comes up. But when you're just having those intro calls and your sample deal package, like, keep it simple enough, right? So having a credibility book, having a one pager, people don't usually read your credibility book, but it makes it, you know, they can see that you've put a lot of thought into your business plan. And then some people do it, and the people that do really respect it, but at very least have the one pager, right? And kind of have that on your website too, so people can kind of quickly get the gist of what you're doing. I think that's going to serve you well. Go ahead.
Dylan, do you want to mention how we go about it, how we display it in the portal? Like, because we went like a step further with that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, so within the portal, we actually encourage everyone to have a sample deal in there, and that's been our big thing, because we have a lot of people that are newer and don't really have a deal that reflects what they're looking for under their belt yet. So they have the sample deal posted there, and then we have the sample deal reflecting in the way that the offering's going. We have documents to download that, you know, that they can have the one pager for the team. They can have the sample deal package, the sample offering memorandum. So that they can get the full picture of what it is that they're looking like. That way, when the real deal comes up, they've already been in their portal. It's kind of like, for those that haven't used the portal, it's kind of like for an investor, it's like an online bank account. So all of your investors get their own little online bank account where they can log in and see your current offerings. They can track their performance on the previous offerings. It's the simplest way to put it. So yeah, we have that in as a sample deal in there, and it makes it easy and gets people familiar with the process, so that they're not going in and trying to explain everything when the actual deal hits, getting everyone logged in. So, the next thing I think is worth mentioning is before we even go on an intro phone call and elevator pitch, I just want to talk on this, because it's probably the next layer that we can probably add and expand upon this. And you can obviously go very deep, but it's creating a marketing machine, right? And this is the hardest part in a lot of ways, right? Is how are you actually going to market yourself? Are you going to be the guy that goes to every single event and just meets everyone there? And are you the networker? Are you going to be the one that that does a podcast? There's a lot of podcasts out there. How are you going to be differentiating yourself, right? How are you going to be getting attention? Are you going to be, I think YouTube's a great platform, probably underutilized one. You know, YouTube is one of the most viewed platforms, and there's not a ton of people doing it for syndications, at least. So the reason I touch on podcasts and YouTube is because we really believe that having long form content is the best way to build relationships. You can make the coolest little Instagram, you know, pictures and all that stuff, right? That are flashy and explain things. But you're not really building a relationship. It kind of just feels kind of like a billboard, or it just doesn't really serve the same purpose. But I think people get to know you, and they get to trust you, and hopefully, and you know, they kind of like build that rapport over time. So I think, you know, YouTube and podcasts are being one of the best avenues. And one thing that Katerina actually, you know, signed us up for a few weeks back, which ended up being great, was this PodMax event, which was, you know, it was held by this group that focuses specifically on, you know, podcasters all around the country. You have like MC Lobsher and Scott Carson, a lot of these other big real estate shows. We were able to go on through that channel, but they talked a lot about the emphasis of being a guest. So I think if you have, and you don't have to have this massive portfolio to be a guest. Everyone on this call has a story. And if you can learn to tell your story effectively and teach lessons through your story, you can start guesting on a podcast tomorrow. And I'm sure that'll be a great way for you to create leverage and get in front of an audience from people that have already built an audience. So I really encourage, you know, you can have VAs do it for you. You can do it yourself, right? If you want to do the $10 an hour test, but reaching out to the podcast host and you know, and basically just providing them with something unique to them. So if you know that, you know, they're a mobile home park, like for me, I'm actually, Katerina's had the bug rub off on me, so I'm going after mobile home parks now. But you know, if I was speaking on someone's show, not as a mobile home park, yeah. If I was, you know, speaking on someone's show and I don't know mobile home parks or I don't know them as well, like what do I know that I can bring value in? For me, it's like I have experience with capital raising, or I have experience with maybe asset management, or you know, a number of different things. Like my background's in sales and public, like I've done a lot of public speaking and things like that. So I think like those kind of things are you know, just teach on what you know and kind of fall back on your like strong suits, and just, you know, if you have a history in I don't know, as an engineer, like talk about how that engineer mindset applies to real estate, and how the things you learn in engineering school that can you know, allow you to build systems in your real estate business or something like that, right? So everyone's got like something of value you can bring. So going out there and just getting yourself out, I think brings a lot of value. So that's your marketing machine. And the last thing I'll mention, because I think we could talk about for hours, but you know, last thing I mentioned on the marketing machine that we've really been emphasizing is be sure that you're you know, you kind of identify your niche and your target audience. So I use that you know, well, actually I'll use a better example. We had a guy on our call earlier today, a good friend of mine that's in oil and gas. And what he's doing is he's leveraging his time in the oil and gas space to target oil and gas people that are going through a tough time right now, right? A lot of them are laid off, a lot of them are furloughed. And this is a wake-up call that they need multiple streams of income. So he's connecting with them and letting them know that, you know, this is a great way to do it. They can diversify, they can get in real estate investing and invest alongside him. So leverage your specific background, or you know, something that you have in common with people outside of just real estate, because I think you're going to have better success there. I have a group of friends that are, you know, both married to physicians, and they've raised, I don't know how many millions, probably 50 million at this point of capital from physicians, by leveraging and making a unique Facebook community that targets physicians and people in the medical field to teach them about the basics on real estate. And they've built credibility through that. So yeah, that's anything else, Katerina, that we're missing there as far as the marketing stuff?
No, I think, you know, you hit it. Do what you know best, and you don't have to know everything. You can document your progress. By any means, I'm a guru in mobile home park space, but guess what? My partners and I, every week, every Sunday, we have our calls, right? So we decided, why don't we record a summary of our turnaround parts that we do once a week, and then we post it on LinkedIn, we post it on Facebook. And this is the process, how we turn parks around, how we infill, how we interview, how we submit our water, how we do any other projects, electrical submitter, and all exciting stuff. We post pictures, we post everything. So our potential investors, partners, they get to know us, they get to know how we operate, and they see us week after week consistently, and they know that we are there and we operate in parks, and that I think lets them just get a little more comfortable with us. And who knows, one of the people watching us do what we do, he reached out and he said, oh, I heard in the last episode, they said episode like a show, last episode you were talking about paving roads, and I happen to be local to your park. I can recommend you contractors.
Wow, that worked out great.
Yep.
Hey, now Dylan and Katerina, can you show us your software? Because I know a lot of us are here to see. I love these steps that you are taking us through, because there's a lot of people that haven't seen that. And I love how you introduced that. So we would love to see this.
Awesome. Yeah. So we'll dive into it to give you an understanding on how it works. So there's two sides to it. You have your principal side, which is where everyone on this call would likely be logging in and managing their database of investors and any of their prospective offerings that they want to publish to them. And then you have your investor side. right? And the investors get their own unique login where they can log in and see their portfolio of the deals they've invested into, as well as they can see any upcoming deals and the stage that it's in. They can place soft commitments through there, right? And the non-binding ones are in the first 30 days. And then they can actually make their offers through there. And we can kind of track the status as those offers are getting made. So this is the portal. You'll see this is just my company logo. I was just throwing that in there earlier today, but you put your logo in there, right? So this is branded towards you. The login page is branded towards you, right? This is something that we've recently actually rolled out. We have a few things in there to custom brand it. In here, just a basic dashboard. You can kind of track what's being funded, what the current offerings are, how much you've raised total, how many soft commitments you have in the pipeline, and any potential investors that you have, which are investors that have not yet invested. So typically the first thing you'll do is go in there and create an offering. Even if you don't have a deal, we highly encourage the whole sample offering. We highly encourage publishing one, or if you have a previous deal that maybe you funded yourself, you can also publish that. Like, so in my, this is a test portal, but on mine, I have a bunch of deals that I've done in the past in there as well. And then I can manage those deals and kind of show the progress on those moving forward. But as far as it goes, when you go in the offering editor, we make it very easy to throw in all the pictures of the deal that you like to, the name, your raise amount, number of units, address, description on the deal. You're going to want to upload documents. So you'll typically have a number of things here. You'll typically have your investor memorandum or your pitch deck. There's like 5 names for it, but you'll have that in there, and then you'll have eventually your legal documents will be in there. Right? So you're always gonna have your private if you're doing a syndication, you'll have your private placement memorandum, your operating agreement, and then your subscription agreement can all be uploaded in the document section. Any other cool documents you want to share with them, definitely encourage uploading and sharing that. And then you give a brief, financial summary in there. So you're able to choose what stats you want to show to your investors on the financial summary. So you have that taking place. And then, and then once your deal is published, or once your offering's edited or uploaded, you can go into publishing. And publishing, you can choose all your investors. You can choose your accredited investors, pre-existing investors, or individual investors. And you can go down the list and select who it is that you'd like to have the deal published to. This is a lot because of the SEC stuff, and also just because we want you to be able to dictate how you run your business. We don't want you, marketing the deal and having people invest that you haven't had a pre-existing relationship with. So we kind of have the measures in place to protect you from that. And then once it's published, you can go in, you can see who it's been published to so far, who's made soft commitments so far, and who's actually made investments so far. So you can really track who's converting on the soft commitments. A lot of times I've seen that you usually have more soft commitments than you have total investments, but sometimes people will invest larger dollar amounts than they make a soft commitment for. So that's oftentimes how it kind of plays out, because as they get more information, they like to put a low soft commitment, but then they say they'll double up on their initial soft commitment. So that's a lot of times what you'll find with that, but you'll be able to track that as you go, all within the portal. And then you have soft commitment stage, and then you can mark it to funding, and funding will allow you to start to collect actual offers, and that will include their bank information that will basically give you the information you need to make your distributions on a quarterly or monthly basis, depending on how you're doing it. Then we have the deal performance dashboard. So once a deal is funded, you can go down here and you can see the deal performance dashboard. And this is actually going to show you pretty much your actual versus your projected. And you can see the month over month performance, in red being a negative variance, green being a positive variance. And if you want to, you can even go and upload your expenses right into here. So you can have it so that you can see, you can put in like your R&M, your repairs and maintenance, your your payroll, your taxes, and you can kind of itemize those if you like, or you can do a bulk upload, whatever you think is going to make the most sense for you. So you can basically track occupant. And so investors can see this like a dynamic P&L, and they could either look at just the actuals or just the, or the projected any actuals, and kind of see how you're performing up to par. Carrie, any comments on that? Or I know you've been doing a lot of, you do a Loom call very, very often, kind of going over this with them.
That's what I record for my partners, for my investors. I'll just explain them. And this is something that what's upcoming when there is a variance in actual versus projected, you would soon be able to make a note of it right there. So there is no explanation. And when your partner is just hovering over that, that negative something, they can see explanation right there. There are no phone calls, no extra emails. Your explanation is right there. Maybe you just paid insurance for the year. That's why your expenses went higher than projected. So it's all towards transparency and just making it overall more enjoyable experience, and yeah, building trust. That's pretty much the preface.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And as you can see, you know, that the note thing is not in place yet, but it's something we're working on. We have a lot of different, you know, there's a lot of things here that this is still evolving, right? As Kyrie mentioned, we've been doing this for coming up to a year now soon. So it's still, you know, we're doing a lot to constantly add and evolve this, but we have all the core functions here live and working. So we're very, very happy with the progress thus far. Contacts, I'll show you. Yeah, so you have your list of contacts. You have import, if you want to import through an Excel, or you can export and then just quickly pop up a list of everyone that you have in your database with their phone number, address, whether they're accredited or not. The reason that's helpful is because a lot of people are probably still doing their deal marketing, you know, or newsletters on an email, like ActiveCampaign we both use, or MailChimp or something like that. It's good to have some kind of an email marketing service as well, so you can send out, you know, colorful newsletters and things like that. And then when you go into the profile on each investor, you can see private notes that were made along the way. You can make notes in there when you talk to them. You can see all their soft commitments that they've made, and then you can see their invested offerings, and you'll be able to see, you know, their entity information as well, so that when distributions come around, you have that in place. And you can upload documents for specific investors on specific offerings. If you have K1s that come out, or you have subscription agreements that you want to associate with their profile, you have that all in place. And that's the contact section. And you don't have to make the contacts all yourself. There'll be a register page. So if we go, and I pull up, so you'll see they have, you know, this, you'll have your own logo here, and then it'll say don't have an account, register to invest, right? And on a lot of everyone's website really at this point, we have something like this, to where you'll have a button saying invest with us or investor login, and that will bring you to the page, right? So that's the idea there, is that you know, you'll have like a button there, and that will just kind of build credibility, because they'll see the button on your site, they'll want to click on that, they'll want to go to the page and then make their own account. And that's usually how most of the investors end up in your database as is. And then you have documents. You can upload, you know, quarterly documents, any kind of like P&Ls or annual reports, or any pictures of the property, anything that you want to share with the investors along the way, you can upload into the document center, and they'll have access to that. And then we have conversations, which are a two-way conversation tool. This is really a tool that's in place for your investors to be able to ping you if they have a question. More than anything, it just makes another easy outreach for them. Instead of just emailing, they can always be logged into the portal and put a subject, a message, attach any documents or screenshots that they want, and then you can review that and respond to all your investors. So that's the overview from the principal side. And then on the investor side, I don't know if we'll go into it with time, but it's basically going to be similar in the sense that you'll have, you know, they're going to be able to see all the outstanding offerings and go in and choose which one. They can make soft commitments. They can view the documents, view the conversations, and so on. So is that any questions or other things we want to look at?
Yeah, I was just trying to field the questions
Yes,
in the
thank
chat.
you did a great job.
So I
love
think
it.
we might be good for now. But guys, if anyone has additional clarifications or questions.
Definitely. So is there anybody in the house that would like to ask a question before we close up shop? I mean, lots of information there that you shared, and really valuable information for everybody. I think it's a great tool, especially for the new folks. It seems very understandable. It's not like getting involved in a Salesforce, CRM that is so difficult, and you need a degree to just put in your contacts. So that's what I really love about this software.
Mm-hmm.
User friendly.
Yeah, that's the goal. Keep it simple. Go ahead.
Yeah. Is there anybody in the house? We have a couple minutes. Is there
Jay's
anything
got a
that?
question.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, I might have missed it earlier. Does this tie in with an existing
CRM.
web page that you have already, a website, or is it standalone?
So it is the way that we typically encourage everyone to do it is if you have a WordPress site or Wix or anything like that, you just have it linked to your specific URL. But because it's branded, it's usually a pretty seamless transition, and you'll have your own specific URL associated with your company.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there is a question on there that says, "What's the cost?" So it'd be great if you guys could take us through that.
So we're grandfathering what we call early adopters in for $1,000 a year, fixed for life. So if you have unlimited deals, unlimited investors, you name it, we're locking people in. I know that's oftentimes a big, pain point we face with technology, is that we're all scared to see what the bill is going to be next year as our business grows. I know it was for me. So we figured for those that are taking this step to work with us early on and to grow with us, we want to give a great rate. And that also includes, we have a private Facebook group that is pretty active, and we have a weekly call every Tuesday with the group where we're bringing in a lot of social media marketing experts and people that are really focused on the investment field, as well as we're covering a lot of the topics on the things that we discussed today. So everyone there is really, I've been amazed to see the progress that the group's been making in a short period of time. So
on the active campaign, Katerina, do you have a time frame that you'll be adopting that, being able to get that information together?
Well, so far we use an active campaign for ourselves, so that is definitely something on our radar. I don't want to promise, might be 90 days or so, maybe a little more, because we have some other major things that we're working on, such as DocuSign or HelloSign. So we looking into that mechanics and trying to get that implemented first. And some folks who are asking questions about security and bugs, and these things, we need to work them through and out and find out if there is anything, because there is always something. So we don't want to just add layers and layers of complexity. We already have a functionality within the portal that allows you to exchange two-way messages and get documents saved and exchanged between the principal and investor. So there is something that can help facilitate this communication. And within the portal, So it is upcoming, and that is why, as Dylan mentioned, we have a very special kind of prize for early adopters who will help us with their comments and suggestions, build this out to the absolute best it could be for all of us to use. So just leave it at that.
That's great. How are you handling bank account information? Is that something that you've got security in place on those?
Yeah, so we have, and Katerina mentioned the double two-factor authentication. We also have a firewall in place, and we've been taking a lot of measures to encrypt any of the sensitive information during the time when it's not being actively in use. So we're doing everything we can on the security front to just, to protect that, because we know that's the most valuable thing. And yeah, so that's definitely a big thing, and something that I think every sponsor should be thinking of. If you don't already have cyber insurance, you probably should. On the sponsor side, and as we're going to have on the portal side, the cyber insurance is basically going to be extremely important for you, because if there's ever a wire fraud or anything like that, which these things happen, and investors can put themselves in a tight spot. You just don't want to be responsible for that. Typically, it doesn't happen as frequent. A lot of the wire fraud happens on a business level, not a consumer level, if you kind of look into it on a deep level. But at the same time, if someone is, a lot of times, the way I've heard of it happening in the past is if hackers go out there and get your email, they might change like one letter in your email and then act like they have the same email as you, and then be saying, hey, make sure to wire the money to this account, right? And that's how they would get you, right? So it's something that I don't think you want to, I mean, some people have it on their email signatures, like don't talk to anyone. Like, I don't know where you want to disclose that. It's probably something to talk to your attorney about, as far as the best way to talk about that, instead of having legalese everywhere. But you definitely just want to be aware of that risk and know that is a threat that is out there. It hasn't been super pressing on our industry, but I have heard of it in a few instances. And I imagine as most things, right, as this becomes a growing space, that'll be an ongoing issue that people will be up against. So we want to protect ourselves.
What does cyber insurance cost? Do you know?
It should be minimal. If as a sponsor, you're typically gonna have your general liability insurance, and I think your cyber, it might be a couple $100 a year. I don't think you're gonna be spending a tremendous amount, because it's not that frequent that it happens. But yeah, I have a insurance guy I can put anyone in touch with if you wanted to explore that on a sponsor level.
Okay. How do you become part of that private Facebook group? Is that once you become an adapter, then we have access to that? Yep.
Yeah, exactly. That's for the users specifically. We bring in the users, and then a couple of our marketing guys that are bringing value to the group. Excellent.
All right. Well, we're coming to the end. Is there anyone else that has a question?
I was going to ask.
I think insurance is a good topic.
Does it have any integration
ahead,
with
Guy.
any of the third-party app sort of integrators like Zapier or Microsoft Flow, so that say you add a contact into your Google contacts and have that contact also come in here as long as it's tagged?
So we don't have it right now. We're looking at what the best way to do this is, because we're kind of weighing whether we integrate directly with ActiveCampaign and MailChimp, or whether we go the Zapier route and have it be, I think they call it zappable or whatever the term is, right, to have it sync with multiple platforms. So we're still kind of weighing what's going to be most effective on that front, but definitely something that's heavy on our radar. Ideally, we would also like to have a little bit more done when it comes to, being able to send newsletters out through the platform as well, syncing with Mailgun and sending personally branded newsletters out through the platform. We don't want to try to take on the job of being the next MailChimp or ActiveCampaign. We don't, not anything we're near that level, but at least like on a very basic level, having that in place is something that I think is probably on like the 6-month radar for us as where we stand. So.
Yeah, I'm sure you have a ton of features on the pipe. Yeah.
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 It's our we have a busy Asana page, right?
Well, you guys have your hands full, and we are so excited. And I hope that, you know, this recording, we've got, what, 18 people, but I know that it goes out to about 400 people. So the exposure for you guys will be really well received. I hope that the efforts that you guys have put out will certainly turn into some early adopters. So we really thank you for the opportunity to have you join us and offer us such a great tool for our new businesses. So if there's not any other questions, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Thank you so much, everybody. It's great to see you. Thank you
Thanks
so
so
much
much,
for
everybody.
making
Thank you.
Tuesday.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thanks a
Thank you,
lot.
Julie. Thank you, everyone.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.